Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and also good morning to you if you're joining us from the West Coast. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day to hop on the call with us. If you had participated in our sessions in the past, welcome back. If you're new to our conversation, then also welcome. Thank you. We're glad to have you here. So we'll start the new year on the right foot and bring some great insights to you. So we have a jam-packed session lined up for you with tons of information. So get your screen grabs ready. We will have lots of insights and lots of data to share with you here. My name is Clarice Kovacs. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Motoinsight, and I'm also joined here by my co-host and who's partner in these regular conversations, Ivan Sandoval. He's the Senior Marketing Manager at Traffic. Ivan, how are you doing today?
Good, Clarice. Thanks. Really excited to be here. When we did the pre-order webinar strategies last month, I thought that was a great webinar. And, we got over together in the holidays and thought, hey, listen, why don't we start 2022 with a bang, the customer journey? Why don't we get some other sort of partners to come in and really give a thorough sort of webinar, it's in addition to the other ones that we've done. So we've got insights coming from T Advantage websites. ActiveX CRM has also joined us. And of course, special guest from Google Canada, Matthew Groudon himself. So it's interesting that about the 5 questions consumers ask themselves, and this is really why we created this webinar, is to see, try to match up, a point in the journey to, a sort of a business that is in this space, and I know you guys have seen this, the 5 questions consumers ask themselves. I think Clarice's came out in 2015. Which car is best? Is it right for me? Can I afford it? Where should I buy it? Am I getting a deal? But I think clearly in 2022, there's 7 questions consumers now ask themselves. The 2 additional questions that they ask is, the ones down below here. Do they have it in stock? With inventory shortages, this is a legitimate question that people actually ask themselves. Do they have it in stock? Is it in stock? And if as a dealer, you got to answer that question. If you have a lot of inventory, make sure you're advertising. If you don't have a lot of inventory, what are your pre-order strategies, right? Because people are asking the question of, do they have it in stock? And then the other one is, how do they treat me, right? Because we all know there's a lot of effort putting into getting a lead. And once we get that lead, hey, you know what? We know that if you screw up that lead, that person is going back up the funnel, okay? Maybe not all the way to the top, but they're at least going to go to where should I buy it? So I'm glad we got ActiveX on the line today as well, but to sort of address the how do they treat me part of the 5 questions that have now become 7. And so you see here, it's really about car buying is a road traveled, not a destination, right, Clarice?
Exactly. And I think that was the thought behind today's session as well. So normally when Ivan and I get together on a monthly basis, we focus on specific, like hyper-focused topics. It could be to a specific step in the consumer journey, or it could be a topic that comes up in our conversation with our deal partners or during these sessions. So we thought, let's start the year on the right foot and bring the experts to the table who are going to be able to share with us some great insights and best practices that we can take back to the business. So really, I recommend you take today's session, thin slice it, and apply the things that really are relevant to you and matches your profile, or something that you know that you need to make some changes or enhancements in these areas. So Ivan's going to go first. He is going to be talking about automation and the importance of automation in 2022. Then we've got Madeleine Dubé, who is the National Director for Online Consulting with our T Advantage website business. She's going to be talking about Black Hat SEO and website best practices. And of course, Matthew, our special guest today, is going to give you insights on everything to do with consumer. So we're talking about consumer trends, how they search, what they're looking for, what they're watching, how they behaving, how their online journey has evolved again in the past year as it's constantly evolving. Then I'll come after Matthew and give you some insights on what we see within our digital retailing data, how consumers are interacting with the tools, which dealerships dealerships are successful in really bringing those customers back into that omni-channel overused word, but we'll talk about that later, into that flow to ensure that they're effective and efficient in converting those prospects. And then we'll have Rui Kuto, who's the business development manager from ActiveX, is going to be talking about mining your own database and leveraging those consumers who are super high quality and they already in your database. So lots to cover, as we said, Ivan, so let's get right into it. So your topic is importance of automation in 2022. I think it would be great to set some context here to understand why you wanted to talk about this and what is it you're going to be covering.
Yeah, traffic, digital ads, I mean, we sit at the top of the funnel, and at the top of that funnel, there's so many channels to advertise on, so many different data points. There's so many dealerships competing for customers, so many customers out there. And so you really need some type of automated or AI solution to be able to advertise to all of these people, or at least funnel them down into your sort of a section. And of course, I've worked dealership side, so how to make it work for your dealership, you definitely want to be able to steer this big machine. Let the automation do its work, but you're the ones, dealership side, to put the strategy in to make that automation work for you. So we can go into the next slide, which is customized journeys are essential in 2022. Interestingly, Claris, when COVID-19 hit, AI enabled companies to adapt their offerings, right, to ensure customers could have great at-home experiences. So customers experience these personalized services, right? And now AI tools are no longer nice to have, rather they're a key element of consumer expectations. So automating your marketing enables you to provide a personalized experience to every single potential customer who crosses your path. For every single vehicle line you have to offer, that's hyper personalization. And the personalization journey really starts right from the user search query, right? That's exactly what they're putting in to the search engine. So for example, a year, make, model search requires a year, make, model ad. It sounds easy, but it's actually a lot more difficult to do that for all your pieces of inventory in stock, right? It's just not possible to do that for every single one and to get it right on the way it is here. Two things can happen. You can increase your click-through rate, obviously, because you're matching the query, and you're going to get a lower CPC when an ad matches as close as possible to the intent of that search query. And we'll talk about a little bit about lower CPC a little bit later on. So you want to answer those buyers' questions right from the start, right? So the first question is, can I afford it? User wants to know the price. So you need something like dynamic pricing in the headline, starting at 66,550 plus HST. Perfect. Now I know the price. Great. That's looking like a good click. User wants to know if it's available. Absolutely. Do they have it in stock? That was the new question, right? Do they have it in stock? Dynamic inventory count, currently 58 in stock. Awesome. That's a dealership I want to come visit. User might want a different trim too, right? So which vehicle do I need? Maybe I want a 2022, maybe I want a classic instead of a DT. Well, there it is automatically right there on the site links extension. Every time I search, there's a new site links extension that's related to the search query. And now you want to recognize the intent of that search. Now that you have the click, send them to the right landing page. Somebody puts in new 2022 Nissan Rogue. Guess what? Show them an SRP with the new 2022 Nissan Rogue, new year, make, model SRP. But what if that user put in just Nissan Rogue? I think this guy's on a fence, right? Not sure if he wants used or new. Send him to the make, model SRP. Let them choose whether they want new or used, right? What if they're very specific? They do a long tail keyword, 2021 Nissan Rogue SV all-wheel drive. You got to send them to the VDP, right? You got to create an ad for that one specific ad. And what a great experience that is for the user. They click on the ad and guess what? Boom, there's the photo, beautiful photos there. You got a description, the price, it's beautiful. And that's exactly what you want to do each and every single time. And then you want to further customize the journey, right? Like you want to move these customers down the funnel. So just think about, right? Just think about when the user has been to your website, they've seen the photos, they've read the descriptions. Now they go somewhere else. Now you're there on your remarketing list, right? Now they come back, they do the search again. You don't want to send them to your website. You want to send them further down the funnel to your diesel retailing SRP on their returning search. So, at Traffic, what we would do, or any of you guys out there, you should send your returning traffic to the digital retailing page. And you'll see here, if we hone in on the URL there, Claris, a little bit, you'll see that instead of sending them to the website on their returning visit, we're sending them to the digital retailing page, because now they can do more things. They can price out their vehicles, right? Calculate their payments. They've already talked to their wife now. The wife's in, she's in. Okay, let's get that car. Now I want to price it out. Okay, maybe I want to add accessories. I want a Thule maybe. Like I want to add that to, now at this point, what does that price look like? They might want to get pre-approved. They might want to value their trade. All those wonderful things that Claire's going to talk about is now on the second visit. So you're moving them down the funnel. And it sounds easy, right? Looks like it's all these, but really it's only AI and automation software that can make all of that happen. 100,000 changes monthly, thousands of ad groups, hundreds of campaigns every single day. Like, it's very interesting when you look at your agency provider to ask them, it's critical to ask them, how many changes did you make in my account, in my Google Ads account? You'll see varying numbers, but if it's not in the hundreds, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, that means you're not with an AI provider. They're only doing things manually, and that's not the way you're going to get a lot of impressions. I find that a lot with manual agencies. They don't get a lot of impressions. When you use AI and automation, you get increased impressions, you get increased clicks, i.e. users. But most importantly, out of all of that, you're giving your users the best user experience possible. And guess what? I've been dealership side, and I know it. At the end of the day, it saves you a lot of money. Okay, straight up, it saves you a lot of money. Why? The better your quality score, the less you pay. I'm going to repeat this. The lower your overall CPC, the more Google has deemed your ads to be the most relevant for their user. Thus, you're not getting a cheap click, but you're actually getting a more quality click. On the right-hand side in the Venn diagram, you see there's this is the way the quality score works: ad relevance, landing page experience, keyword relevance. If you're talking about AI optimizing all of these portions of your ad, your quality score is going to be killer, and it's going to be lower. Okay. The best way to measure your agency is to ask them for the cost per click KPI. That KPI is going to show you how good your agency is performing for you. I put some benchmark CPCs here from our ad account. You should be in and around these numbers. For your name, you should be in and around 43 cents. For new car inventory, you can get it as low as 65 cents, 75 cents, depending on competition. Some other vehicles are about $2.25, but on average, it should be about $1.58. And for used, you should not be more than $1.39 cost per click. And I'll show you how this is the money slide here to me of the difference between an automated agency and a one that is manual. Real case study on the screen, folks. Real case study. Manual agency was spending $2,000, 15% management fee. They think they're getting a deal. It's 15% management fee. Total cost was $2,300. The average CPC of this agency was $3.74, giving them a total of only 535 users. Okay. We took that, we're an automated agency, so we took the $2,000 ad spend and as a 25% management fee, which is standard. And the total cost there was $2,500. So it's only $200 more per month, but the cost per click, you see, on an AI agency is 52 cents, which means we were able to give this dealer 3,846 users, 3,300 more users for $200. Now, I know you're going to ask yourself, well, what about the quality of the clicks, right? Okay, let's just say this. All 535 manual agency clicks that they captured would also be captured by the AI, plus another 3,311. Okay, you would also, on a daily basis, get 5,000 more impressions per day to capture more potential quality clicks. Even if you got one out of that 5,000, that's still beating the manual agency. And on top of that, and this is the most important part, you're getting 3,311 additional users added to your data for additional research quality, which means now you have more data points to figure out what the next best click is going to be. You have that much more data to play with. And remember, for the same amount of money. We'll go next. So really, automation, you can see there's a lot of positives to it, but it requires a high level of digital strategy in terms to direct it. So we call it automation and humanation. The machine isn't your enemy, but a friend in need of guidance. There was an awesome book called Join or Die, Digital Advertising in the Age of Automation. I highly encourage you guys read that. Also on our LinkedIn page, I interviewed Pierre-Luc Caron, who's one of our senior strategist because he read the book and we went talked about it, about how, it's join or die, get into automation or basically die, become obsolete. Highly recommend you check that out. So now we're going to the human aspect. You want to make this automation work for your dealership. You want to use engagement rules to set your overall strategy. Eliminate ads for non-merchandise units, okay? Vehicles with less than 5 photos provide a bad user experience, and this provides bad data to the algorithm. And it's also a bad user experience, so they're probably not going to come back to you. So pause these ads, right? Your AI is looking at all of your inventory, pause these ads, get your merchandising up, you know what I mean? Get the snow off, get some nice photos in there, use the studio, whatever you need to do. Low inventory level models, okay? You want to take those out of the picture because now that helps direct your daily budget to your more strategic units, ones that you have more stock in, right? You could, your budget won't max out as quickly, okay? Cars with less than 15 days in stock. This gives you some time to merchandise, but also it gives the algorithm more time, or it gives your money more time to go to those learned vehicles, right? To get more exposure, the ones that already been through the AI. And then junkers, of course, vehicles under $5,000, wholesale, whatever. Get them out of there, send them to auction. I don't even know. Sometimes I guess the CRM puts them on there, send them to Mannheim or something like that. But actually the auction probably won't even take them. And either way, you don't want to be advertising. I'm sure they're going to move on their own one way or another. And then bid adjustments. Bid adjustments are very important because you want the bid adjustments. Well, let me explain what bid adjustments are. Bid adjustments allow you to show your ads more or less frequently to certain demographics based on where, when, and how people search. So if you see that you have good mobile device views, hey, increase your mobile. If you're not getting as much from rural, you want to stay to the urban centers, reduce it a bit. And this is a big one that we always do actually is, hey, listen, you don't want those clicks coming in from those guys that are drunk, coming in from the bar, taking, looking up Dodge Challenger, Chevy Corvette or something like that, wasting your clicks. Reduce the CPC for there, save your time for the optimal points in time. So this is kind of how bid adjustments works. But more importantly, on the next slide, what we'll see is you want to make bid adjustments for your vehicles as well. In automotive, inventory position-based strategies are critical for bid adjusting. So bid up on vehicles you have plenty of stock in, right? Bid higher so that you're on the more of those searches. Bid down on high search dreamer vehicles, right? Because you get a lot of clicks on them, and they're not even. Most of the people are just looking. You probably only have 1 or 2 in stock, anyways. So you might as well just not have them. They're going to sell themselves anyway, right? And then of course bid adjust seasonally based on model. Hey, that Ford Mustang, awesome. It's going to get a lot of action in the spring. Is it going to get a lot of action in the winter? Not really. Let your money go somewhere else at that point. And here's a big one, and Rui and out of Activix is going to talk about using your own data, and this was really well received. Develop custom audience segments using your first-party database for more efficient campaigns. I cannot stress this enough. Take 500 of your contacts, upload them to a native platform like Google, YouTube, etc. There's users on there that have Gmails, and when they match together, you're going to get probably 50% match. You want a minimum of 250 customers matched in order to do campaigns, and you're only doing them those 250. But, and we can go next, Clarice. Most importantly, what happens is the AI algorithms will then create high converting lookalike audiences from those 500. Remember, those 500 are already sold. If you've already sold them a vehicle, they're the perfect demographic or whatever it is they are. They're the perfect, person or whatever to target. And so now that you've uploaded these, Google then creates people with similar habits, similar traits to what they have. Now you have another 250, another 250, another 250, or 500, whatever it is. So now you have a really targeted campaign with custom an audience segment that's really already converted or look alike those who have already converted for you. And I did want to provide a case study because whenever we talk about these things, I want to make sure that, we did do this, to make sure that you guys are aware. So here's a custom audience case study of the Hyundai dealership in an urban center in December 2021. What we did there was we utilized an audience list of customers who had vehicles over 4 years, plus lease renewals up to a year. I like switching my car every 3 years, but we did 4 years. And you can see that that's an actual screenshot from one of our performance reviews. And we got a 59% increase in clicks, 37% increase in VDP views, and a 36% increase in conversions. And remember, this is December 2021. So I bet you most of the KPIs that you guys had or when you saw went down. In this case, it went up. And then finally, time. I actually posted on LinkedIn today about time. AI and automation need time to optimize. Give your campaigns at least 60 days to see best results. You can see there the number of users in a campaign that I pulled over the number of weeks. As the machine is learning, it's the first month or 14 days really, and then it's testing for another 14 days, it's learning. And so it really starts to optimize after 30 days. So really AI needs at least 14 days just to learn and 45 more days to run its course. So give your campaigns time. I know I get impatient, and I was when I was dealership side. Oh, you got to make the changes. You got to make changes. But 60 days optimal. You really see the results at the end at about 45-day mark, all the way to the 90-day mark. And I know we have some OEMs on the call today, and thank you for joining. And so I just want to leave it and say, hey, if you guys can just do your offers over 60 days, it would honestly help our dealerships digital campaigns to have 60 days, right? Because they'll start to really optimize over the 45-day mark. So I don't know if it'll happen. It'll be less work for you, to be honest, but I don't know if it'll happen, but that is something that would be kind of best practice.
Ivan, thank you so much appreciated, those insights. I find them always great, and it's something that our dealerships can leverage to ensure that they get the most optimized solution for that for their marketing campaigns and retargeting campaigns as well. So if you think through the funnel, we talked about influencing, now engaging those prospects and getting them further in the funnel. So now we have Madeleine, who's going to be talking about Black Hat SEO and some website best practices as well, to make sure that we are driving those customers to the website and we're engaging them and keeping them there as well.
Thank you. So I chose to talk about Black Hat SEO techniques because, like Ivan mentioned, clients right now, your consumers, they want to know if you have inventory in stock, but they also want to know if you are treating them well. And it's possible to show this information directly in the search results to optimize your website for that, but you need to make sure that you follow Google guidelines when you are doing it. So based on recent research that was shared by Google in the Google Dealer Guidebook, 79% of new and used car buyers will use search engines when they are looking to buy a vehicle. And what do the customers are they looking for? Well, they want to get recommendations or advice. They want to be able to compare vehicles. They also want to know about pricing, and they want this information quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's important when you optimize your website for search results and your website itself, you need to answer those needs. Google has evolved a lot since the last few years. It used to be only standard blue link, but now Google is showing what we call enriched search results. So when a user types a queries in Google, Google will provide more information to answer this query. For example, you can see carousels, you can see images, videos, you can even see ratings directly in the search results. And also, if someone asks a question on how to do something, Google can display a list of how to do this specific something. So this is called enriched results. It's possible to optimize your website to show enriched results in search engines, and it's done through what we call structured data markup. For dealerships, the way you can optimize your website to show enriched results, you can display many information and you can address directly the 7 questions that your consumers are looking for. You can show directly in the search results if you have a specific vehicle in stock, what's the price, and you can also provide extra information, have a more detailed description that Google can display as a featured snippet. For that, you need to have very developed content on your website. However, you also need to make sure that you follow Google guidelines. Google, they have high standards for quality. The information that is presented must be true and honest. Some of the Google guidelines, especially concerning reviews, is that you have to make sure that the reviews are readily available to users, When they click on the results and they go on the website, they must be able to see the reviews that they saw in the search results. Also, their ratings must come directly from real users. If you don't follow these guidelines, you run the risk of your website being penalized, and it can also be removed entirely from search results. On the right,
oops, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to show some examples.
Sure.
You see here, we see 3 search listings. They are for different make models. They are from different dealerships, but strangely, they all show the same number of reviews and the same star ratings. And when you click on those search results and you land on the page, you won't find nowhere those reviews. So this goes against Google guidelines, and it can put your website at risk. Here it's an example of best practice. So if you want to display reviews in the search results, make sure those reviews are available, visible, and they come from real users, and they are there on the landing page. Here is an example. You can see the reviews. They are pulled dynamically from Google My Business. You can see the name of the person. You can even verify, double check if it's a real review by going back into the Google My Business account of this dealer. So this is a best practice. For your website itself, when we do heat map studies of dealership website, we see that most people, they want to look at your inventory. And to access your inventory, they will mostly use the main navigation menu. We always see a big number of clicks under new and use in the main navigation menu. So it's very important to optimize your menu so that your consumers, your client, they can access your most important inventory very quickly in one click. So some ways to do that: you can optimize your menu by adding filtered inventory to show your most important inventories, but also have a mega menu where your most important inventory, the one that you want to get sold the most quickly, is readily accessible in one click. Also, when your user go on your search results page, have a quick view button so that when they are browsing your inventory, and they just want to have to quickly see to have more details for specific vehicles without having to go on a different page on your website, when you have a quick view button, your clients will be able to have a snapshot of the vehicle, to get inspired, and then to continue their browsing easily and really in a fluid manner. Also, we cannot repeat it enough, but videos are very important. It's easier, to digest a lot more of information through a videos than to read a long text. Also, you can convey emotion, you can convey more information with a video. So have videos available on your website. There are different ways to do that. On your search results page, you can add a call to action where your clients can request a videos on demand. So it's a good way for you to establish a first contact with your consumers who are interested in your inventory. And if you have videos that you want to make available right away for your clients, make sure there's a clear button on your search results page that your clients, they just need to click on it to view a video. And also have those videos easily accessible in your vehicle's details page. So it can be in the same space as the images, but also include a video in your vehicle description. Like that, you are sure if they're not sure if you want to go through all the description, they can also view a video and have more details about your car. And as we know about the buying journey of someone who is shopping for a vehicle, they want to be able to compare vehicles. So make sure you have an option to compare vehicles on your website. Also, today, people are very, very savvy. There's a lot of information they can get online about pricing. They can go on the OEM website, they can go on marketplaces, they could look at your competitor's website. So consumers right now are used to having a lot of pricing information, and they will want to get that information quickly. If you can provide as much information, as much detail as possible about pricing on your website, your clients, they will appreciate it. For them, the shopping journey will be easier. finally, when we talk about which call to actions to use on your website, you need to make sure it matches your consumer's intent. It also needs to match their thinking process. When someone is shopping for a car, for most people, it's a big investment. So they want to know, do they have the budget for it? They will want to calculate their payments. It's often one of the first key questions that customers ask of themselves. So on your website, when you are thinking about what are the best call to actions, have call to actions that match your consumer's buying journey. Often when we have a calculate my payments call to action, it works very well. Also, if your clients, they are ready to buy online, add a call to action to buy online. And you can also test multiple different secondary call to action that match different phases of the buying process. Book a test drive is a good one, apply for financing, and value my trade. If you also have your most important call to action on your search results page, it would help improve the performance of your website. So thank you very much. And I hope those advices will help you when you optimize your website for SEO and also for consumer behavior right on your website.
Well, thank you, Madeline. That was great. I mean, it's not just Black Hat SEO there. You did a lot of sort of website best practices as well. Well, I really like the video aspect. Anybody know? I'm sure there's people on the call who've been with me before, and video is the greatest asset that you can have in auto. And yet a Rolls-Royce Ghost. I sure hope they're doing a video on the Rolls-Royce Ghost, that's for sure.
I want to see a video of that.
Cool. Well, thank you, Madeline. And of course, drum roll, we have come to the point in the journey that is taken by Google. Actually, Google can be in basically all points of the journey, right? And so we have the Matthew Groudon himself, who's up in cottage country, I believe. I'm not sure. He's the head of Google Canada Automotive Retail Team. Heard you over the years, Matthew. Awesome to have you on the show this year, first one for 2022. And I think you're doing your own screen share because you have like awesome amount of slides, always thorough, which I love.
Hey, everyone. So can everyone see my screen? Is that doing well? That's great.
Yep.
Perfect. So as many of you probably know, if you've seen me present before, I always start with the data point of the fact that I grew up in the small town of Wyerton. It's, I'm a nerd from a small town. It's hard to be a nerd in a small town, but you get over it with some therapy and lots of conversations. Starting my video. There it is. There, it's back. Is my screen sharing again or no? Something happened there.
Right now. We go. We're good. We're back on.
Back on. Okay. I've been at Google Canada now almost 7 years. My 7-year Googleversary is just around the corner. It's just February 9th to be exact. And my son Nathan, who is starting to channel his inner Kurt Cobain here. This was his first day of school last September. When we were first kind of locked down in the early days of COVID back in March 2020, it was really the first time that Nathan got to see me work. And he was watching me day to day, and he came up to me about 3 weeks in, and he said kind of a funny thing. He said, "Daddy, I don't understand your job. All you do is talk all day. Why does Google pay you for that?" And I kind of explained to him, I'm like, buddy, my job really consists of 3 things: talking to people, preparing to talk to people, and then explaining to people at work who I talk to. Like that's, if I were going to distill my job into 3 things, those are the 3 things that I do. But COVID's made our lives interesting, some of us more than others, depending on where you live in the country and depending on who you work for. I was particularly struck with this quote that I recently found from the Dropbox CEO. So guess what? You're commuting to be back on Zoom, which is a new cycle of hell in an open plan office. And I feel like I experienced some of this last summer and fall when I went into the office to just also be on video calls with my other colleagues who weren't in the office. That this is a little prophetic. This is kind of the state of where a lot of us folk who would otherwise go into an office building are living our lives. It is a bit of a circle of hell, and it is kind of a perfect statement for where we at. I have a bunch of other insights that are kind of related to the state of COVID and then how that relates to automotive. So for instance, 32% of Canadian employees adult aged are working most hours from home, right? So, and working from home is really working online. So it's an entirely new segment of people. They were working from, they were working online when they were in the office before, but now there's no one watching exactly what they're doing. So they're probably doing more shopping and more streaming than they were before. This was an interesting supporting set of data from Stats Canada that talked about what were the barriers to productivity while working from home. Number one was the lack of interaction with coworkers. That was 22%, which almost suggests that almost 80% were completely okay not interacting with their coworkers. So maybe some of us don't like our coworkers as much as we like to say we do. Number two was other reasons don't know, and I think that's probably BS. I'm sure those people do know. They just didn't want to share that in case their boss was reading the survey results. Otherwise, it's caring for children, need to do additional work to get things done, accessing work-related information and devices, more difficult from home, inadequate physical space, I can relate to that a little bit, and then 5% internet speed. But that's narrowing, and that's a pretty small percentage. A lot of our kids, and again, we started this in Ontario this past January with kids learning from home. Super interesting. It's like we did a massive social experiment with education. Some kids did perfectly well. Some thrived, right? This is a CBC piece of journalism. They talked about some students thrived at home, but others need a connection with teachers and other students. Learning became more personalized and exciting, but it's not for every student. So I don't think we fully understand all of the implications here. There's some suggestion that some students are now being left behind, other students advancing very quickly if they're self-starters, if they're able to work remotely. But I still think there's a lot to dig into here that we haven't really gotten into. Streaming, I made the joke earlier that might be what that other percentage is, but back in 2019, we actually saw that streaming services surpassed TV subscriptions in Canada. And since then, and this data only goes up to the end of 2020, it's now a pretty substantial divide. So we see this decline in kind of standard TV subscriptions, cable and satellite subscriptions, and this massive spike or growth, a hockey stick growth in streaming services across a bunch of different services. This made me laugh. The Netflix show Squid Game, there was a South Korean broadband company that tried to sue Netflix because the amount of traffic that was generated by people trying to watch that show online actually took down their network. This is back in October in 2021. We Canadians, we love to travel, and when we can't get out of the country, we really love our parks. And so we have this mobility study that we do that's put together by Waze, and they kind of track, destinations that people go to around home and work and shopping and recreation and parks. And so parks for the last 2 summers back in 2020 and 2021 basically spiked to 170%. We all desperately, as soon as the weather gets better in whatever province you live in, we desperately want to get out. And that's when we get back in our vehicles and drive somewhere. This is what that curve looks like. You can kind of see all of the different data points for park, residential, grocery, pharma, big box stores, retail, recreation, workplaces, and transit stations at the bottom, which took a massive nosedive at the beginning of the pandemic and is really not recovered. But you see those 2 big spikes almost looking like cat ears. Those are Canadians getting out to parks. Another interesting data point, or a case study, if you will, the CEO of Airbnb recently announced that he now plans to basically live and work from Airbnbs in 2-week cycles, that he is now perpetually, since he doesn't have to be in an office, he's just going to rotate from Airbnb to Airbnb around the world. I'm sure that's the luxury of being CEO, but it's really him being his best undercover boss. The other part of the story is that he actually has been working for the most part for the last 18 months in an RV. He's got an RV that he's been driving around the United States, and he's been working from his RV. So just kind of highlighting that the future of work is going to be very closely tied to the future of travel. That now that we know that people can basically work from anywhere, now they will. And so our ability to just pick up and move to another, whether it's the cottage, whether it's a different country, whether it's an Airbnb, and work there and have a vacation there at the same time, is now unlocked in a way it never was previously in history. When we look at the research related to cars, or the queries related to cars, we can see here on the kind of interest curve for Canada that the demand for vehicles has never been higher. It continues to kind of go up and up and up. So year to date, I know we're still early days, and it is a bit of the miracle of small numbers, but we're up 9.1% in overall queries. And that's really on top of some of the highest query growth that I have certainly ever seen in the 7 years that I've been in the auto team at Google in Canada. So the overall interest in getting a vehicle continues to increase, and people are doing more and more research, more and more searches, more and more queries related to vehicles. Also, as part of the pandemic, we saw this new segment of buyers. I think you probably heard a lot about this in the last 2 years. New segment of buyers emerged because they needed to buy a vehicle. So the COVID-19 kind of prompted them to get either a new vehicle or a second vehicle, maybe accelerated some millennial purchases, whether that was, they needed that for work or to shuttle their family around, or really needed a sense of safety, wanted to be able to commute to and from places, and didn't have, again, faith. And we saw that drop off in kind of transit travel, people going to and from transit stations and commuter transit stations. That's being picked up by people buying and owning either their first or second vehicle. But with demand increasing and this entirely new segment of buyers coming forward, we have this other problem, and that's that supply has really been a problem. I'm sure that's not news to any of you. And yet profit per vehicle sold is not a problem. I mean, we're making more money for every vehicle that we're selling. There just aren't enough vehicles to sell. And so I highlight here that, there's this issue that's probably close to all of us, near and dear to all of our hearts. You probably know what I'm talking about. It really highlighted the fragility of our global supply chain, and that is, of course, the global chicken wing shortage. It's global chicken. That wasn't it? That wasn't what you were. No, so there is a global chicken wing shortage. I don't know if you've seen this. Great article by the CBC, but I've also experienced this myself. I was at a pizza and chicken place in a small town, Ontario, and they had this beautiful handwritten sign about how they had to charge 3 times the normal price for chicken wings because they couldn't actually source chicken wings. The Chicken Marketing Board had this amazing comment saying that production was ramping up, but that chickens only come with 2 wings, that there's only so much they can do, and that by sheer press of numbers, chickens only come with 2 wings, and so they can't fix this problem right away, which then, of course, reminds us of our own global supply chain shortage with microprocessors and microchips. You probably pre-pandemic had never heard of TSMC, the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company. They are one of Taiwan's largest companies. They are the world's most valuable semiconductor manufacturer and are responsible currently for 70% of automotive microprocessors and microcontroller production. So if you haven't heard of them, now you have. They're also in the top 10 wealthiest or largest companies by market cap. I think they're number 9. So it's a big deal. And they have actually ramped up production, but it's not enough. It's still not enough. And this is pretty dramatically impacting the production of vehicles today and will continue for the foreseeable future. But there is some good news. And so to their credit, consumers have adjusted to these shortages in some interesting ways. Our own research pointed that the more expensive the vehicle, the more willing consumers were willing to wait. So if there is a luxury vehicle or an expensive pickup truck that people want to buy, they are willing to wait for them. They're willing to factory order them and have them come in later. We also learned that the kind of acceptable threshold for the largest number of people, 67% of folk willing to wait, are quite comfortable waiting 3 months. So it's not that they won't wait longer and not that they don't want their vehicle faster, but they're sort of right now, it seems acceptable to people that they could walk in, order a vehicle, and expect it to come in about 3 months. Another shift, something new this year, hadn't been the case in our previous research, previous years. Reliability emerged as a critical purchase factor in 2021. I think that's super interesting. Again, relating it back to that drop in transit use and the increase in desire to own more personal vehicles. Reliability is key. You don't want to be caught off guard. You don't want to be on the side of the road when you can't get in that CAA truck because of their COVID protocols. Following that, it was the deal, right? What am I going to pay? Also kind of new and different this year, four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive became a going concern. Brands I have experience with, and then safety, and then fuel efficiency. Fuel efficiency pushed way down the curve for in the face of wanting reliability and all-wheel drive. Boston Consulting Group did this pretty interesting piece of research at the tail end of 2020, and in it they talked about what the projected curve for online vehicle sales might look like. They kind of proposed that it would follow the same kind of trend we've seen in the past for large furniture and large appliances, other items that have, are large ticket, large expensive items that often get bought in advance. And they projected that the curve will take us about 15 years to get from what was in 2020, about 1 or less than 1% of vehicles being sold online to get to about 30% of vehicles being sold online. So their curve, their projection was it might take 15 years to get up to the same point that we now see these other large items being sold at online. When we look at our consumer research, we know that people have been willing to buy online for a long time. This number has fluctuated a lot throughout the course of COVID, spiked at the heart of COVID in 2020 at about 73% of people, but that was really, there was no other way to buy a vehicle online, so the interest was very high. But it really is leveled out back at around this 53, 55% of people, just over half willing to buy online. I'm reminded of the fact that even in other big box retailers and other omni-channel retailers, only 20% of their sales come through online channels. So 53% is a pretty big number. When we look at, again, the people that bought vehicles online in 2019, it was about 1% of folk. And when we look at our 2021 survey, it was about 6% of folk. And so what that means is in Canada, we're currently accelerating a lot faster than what BCG was projecting. Hard to know if that trend is going to persist, but interesting to date. So as we kind of get more data and run more surveys over the next couple of years, we'll have a better understanding of whether or not we're tracking to that 15-year trajectory or if it is in fact accelerating. When you think about the way a dealership can respond or react to that information, there's really, I think, out of the gate, 4 different areas where you could be deploying some sort of commerce solution, activating some sort of different omni-channel experience for consumers. That's pretty obvious, right? There's the opportunity with new vehicle, but I think depending on your brand and depending on the business, there's going to be a fair amount of OEM involvement in that decision. Maybe not today, so maybe right now that's a dealer exclusive decision in terms of what platform you choose and how you proceed with either a digital retailing platform or an e-commerce platform for new vehicle. But over time, I think the OEMs are going to have more to say about that. There's also the opportunity to sell parts online. That's probably purely a dealer-driven exercise, but has challenges related to having the data and the photo and all of the things you would need to actually make those available online. Used is really the hotspot, I think, for a dealership right now, because that isn't something that the OEM gives much of a crap about. And then not really touched yet, but I think a huge opportunity, interesting announcement just recently from the folk at Ford with their partnership globally with Stripe, which is a digital-first transaction company that is the back end of transactions for Shopify and also the failover payment processor for Amazon. But F&I, making it easy to both activate credit, make a down payment, all the things that are actually related to financing and then maybe paying for other services, extended warranty. I think there's a huge opportunity here, but again, I think that's maybe something a dealer could work and activate on in the near term, but that over time, the finance department at the OEM is probably going to have more to say about that. I did this podcast back in the fall with a couple of dealers. Brian Benstock was one. Jeremy Kosh was the other from Kosh Ford in Edmonton. Brian had a lot of interesting things to say, as he always does. Very vocal character. If you don't know him, if you don't follow him on LinkedIn or Clubhouse. But one of his quotes, one of the things he said during that podcast was that dealers today aren't investing in their future because they're in a profit coma, that we're making, again, more money per vehicle sold, and that as a result, it's causing some dealers to sit on their laurels, not actually invest in tools that will help them in the future. Pretty aggressive statement. Again, I didn't say this, Brian said this, but I think it's interesting food for thought as we look at what that trajectory for online sales looks like, as we look at the consumer demand for it. There's certainly the opportunity to invest in these tools now and be ready for that 15-year trajectory. When you look at what's happening in the market, I would declare that the first real battlefront here is used vehicle sales online, although many people are also activating new car sales, whether that's the work that some OEMs have done, like Hyundai and their click-to-buy platform, and others, as well as what individual dealers and auto groups might be doing with folk like Motoinsight and others. I really think the interesting space today is what's happening with some auto groups kind of deploying their own e-commerce solutions to sell used vehicles online, as well as kind of Clutch starting in the east and moving west, and Canada Drive starting in the west and moving east, both securing very large rounds of funding to continue to grow and activate their businesses over the next number of years. So really interesting space. So you've got Clutch here raising capital. You have Canada Drives raising capital in the middle. Just one example. This is not a comprehensive piece of landscape research. It's just 2 articles and one video I put together to demonstrate this. But that's kind of a sexy piece of creative that the folk at Auto IQ put together. But funny thing happens, when you work at Google, you have to do a lot. Getting hired at Google is very difficult. So getting a job at Google can be very complicated. It can take a long time. But this kind of happened to me. Hey, Grad, don't you know something about e-commerce? Someone said. And so when you get hired at Google, it's everything you did in your previous life that led all your previous experience that kind of led you to that place that is the groundwork that gets you the job at Google. But then as soon as you get in the door, for the most part, no one gives a crap about what you did before you were at Google. It's just now you're a Googler, you do work at Google, and that's all that matters, and we do things differently. Until there's a global pandemic and you work in the automotive industry and a big chunk of your previous work experience was in consumer e-commerce, and then people are like, turn to you for advice, both inside Google and out. And so I do have, nearly 20 years of consumer e-commerce experience prior to Google. And so people keep asking me all these questions about this space. And so to kind of address that, I put together these next kind of cheeky set of slides. And so I worked for many years at Indigo. I worked for nearly 8 years in the e-com team. I was the director of product, which means I helped build and direct the development of the e-commerce platform at Indigo. And the book people at Chapters in Indigo used to talk to me and say to me back in 1999 that people were not going to buy books online, that this was not how people bought books online. They wanted to come into the store. They wanted the experience of getting a coffee at Starbucks and walking around the store and maybe looking at the reading socks and then buying it. That's how people buy books. It's the experience that people want. And I was like, yeah, well, some people do. And even people who buy online want that as well once in a while. But then people will also buy books online. And so when we started out this journey at Indigo and Chapters selling books online, there was a lot of naysayers. And then you kind of fast forward to today, and there's now this company, I won't say who it is, but you can probably guess who that is, that now sells more books online than any bookstore chain in the history of the world, has a $1.4 trillion market cap. It was actually larger the first time I built this slide, but I had to adjust it because the market's come down a fair bit. But still pretty impressive growth. And books is not the only thing they do, but they are the world's biggest bookseller, which kind of tells where that story went. And then a few years later in my career, I headed up digital at a company called Wind Mobile, now Freedom Mobile. We launched that company purely digitally. without any traditional media whatsoever. And when I started there, all of the people that we had on the team that were, you see the trend already, right? They see all the people that came in from Rogers and TELUS and Bell, they came in and they were like, people don't want to buy phones online. That's not how people want to buy phones. They want to walk into the Rogers store. I would stop them at that point and sort of challenge them on that. But I was like, no, they want the experience. They want to walk into the store. They want to pick up the device, and that's how they want to do it. And I was like, yeah. And then you fast forward another 10 years and there's a company, I won't tell you who it is, but maybe you can guess, that now sells more phones online than any phone company in the history of the world. It has a 2.6 trillion market cap, one of the most powerful companies in the world, and they have no issue selling phones online. And so you look at the car industry today and you say, okay, well, I talk to people at dealership and they're like, that's not how people want to buy vehicles. People don't want to buy vehicles online. Something I've heard over and over again in meetings over the last couple of years. They want the experience of walking into the dealership and drinking the coffee that's gone cold at the dealership and talking to that salesperson that's trying to upsell them something they don't want to buy. That's what they want. That's the experience they want. They don't want to buy cars online. And I know this is not every dealer. And I know a lot of people have changed their mind or were not here at all to begin with. But then, of course, you look at another example of this, and Tesla sells every vehicle online. Every Tesla sold, whether it's done online as a starting point, or if you walk into one of their showrooms, it starts with an online transaction on a laptop, on a tablet, on a phone. $941 billion market cap. It was over $1 trillion last year, but again, market's a problem. So also sold more vehicles online than any car manufacturer in the history of the world. So you get the point here, that there's always been this argument that that physical experience trumps the online experience. And within a decade of adopting online transactions in any particular vertical or sector, that proves not to be true. That there is a material group of people who want to buy things online, and especially if it's something they're very familiar with, if it's more the break fix scenario where I've always bought XYZ vehicle for the rest of my life and I just need a new one of those, then it's really easy for me to go online and buy that vehicle again. Food for thought, something to consider is that all new electric OEMs are digital first companies, right? They are all, whether you look at Rivian, whether you look at Tesla, whether you look at any of the up and comers, they all start with a digital forward. That is how you initiate the transaction. That is probably how the transaction starts and finishes. So as EVs become mandatory in Canada, as a segment grows, I think we're just going to see more and more of this kind of interconnectivity between the online buying experience and electric vehicles. It's also the place that a lot of the OEMs are going to use to test their own online buying platforms. So there's a real overlap. If they were concentric circles, I think that overlap is high and will continue to remain high for the foreseeable future. Okay, so let's talk about the journey. What's going on with car buying? We know it's not news. This has been the case. 90% of new car buyers rely on online information while researching vehicles. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. If it is, you haven't heard me speak before. When we look at what sources people use, it's this, too many clicks. It's really this combination of online and offline sources. Media does not live in a vacuum. So I picked everything that was above 30% in terms of what media was used. Top five online sources are usually used. 2 offline sources are usually used. What are the top sources on the digital side? It's search, it's video, it's the OEM website, it's the dealer website, and then it's review and comparison sites, marketplaces, if you will. On the offline side, it's visits to a dealership, it's the test drive, and then it's interaction with a salesperson at a dealership. And if I were going to be really frank with you, aren't those all the same thing? Like, isn't that, although those are broken out as the top 3 things, really a dealership visit, a test drive, and interaction with a salesperson is really kind of the same thing. Percentage, right? Search is number 1, 79%, video following that up at 65. About 75%, 3 out of 4 people discover their vehicle online, highlighting the importance of quality digital experience in the research process. Super interesting. Over time, I've seen this kind of be narrow, the overall length of time that someone is taking to buy a vehicle. A few years ago, we were kind of watching it shrink, and we kind of attributed that to the fact that people were now able to answer more and more of their own questions online. They were able to search and get answers to questions, answering those questions that Ivan highlighted at the beginning. Is this right for me? Where can I buy, etc.? Am I getting a good deal? But then a weird thing happened about 3 or 4 years ago, is that actually the journey started to get longer. It actually was taking people longer to buy a car. And I think it was like information overload. There was too much to choose from, too much information. They couldn't decide. It was the paradox of choice. But now enter COVID, with more and more people at home all day, working from home with, again, not their boss over their shoulder. It's gone down pretty substantially. So we've seen this like 12% increase from 2020 to 2021 in people that buy in less than 2 weeks. We see nearly 60%, 59% of people buying in less than a month, and then 18%, again, another subset of that, buying in 1 week. And so it only means that there are only, there's like 41% of people who take longer than a month, kind of inverse of this slide, inverse of the data. So this really journey accelerating because people are able to take the time to get the answers to the questions they want. Video becoming a more important part of the journey. Ivan touched on this as well, but we see now 65% of buyers use online video as part of the research. 68% of those folk who watch an online video then follow up with one of those kind of more lower funnel actions, visiting a dealer, looking for more information, looking for pricing information, etc. Couple of footnotes on the overall YouTube platform in the last year. Platform has grown somewhat astronomically during COVID. Now 13 million Canadians tuning in to YouTube on their television. So that's not the entire base of YouTube users. That's just the people who watch YouTube on their physical television. And on that physical television, they're watching on average 2.5 hours a day of YouTube. So overall viewership on YouTube has just exploded. It's kind of mind-boggling. It's hard to wrap your head around. What's happening at dealership? What is the story on the ground floor? Well, this hasn't changed in the last few years, but how do I decide? How do I determine what dealership I'm going to buy from? Number one, it's the vehicle I was looking for was in stock. Number two, it's the overall price, right? So it's what's in stock, what am I going to pay? And then after that, I've had a previous good experience there, or it was in a reasonable distance from my home. Things that people don't really want, right? Things that people are not happy about, and I've touched on this already, but unwanted sales, right? Upsells, right? Pressure from salespeople, having to deal with multiple people, lack of overall pricing transparency, too much time waiting. Like, why is it taking so long? I thought I bought my vehicle a couple of days ago. Why haven't I received it yet? Why haven't they told me to come pick it up? Or why hasn't it been delivered to me yet? And then just the overall time spent shopping and negotiating. So kind of a reflection of that kind of overall decrease in the buying journey we're seeing in a number of days and weeks. Most car buyers only visit one dealership. Again, we kind of shared this for the first time in this view last year, but you kind of see that 46% of people only going to one dealership. On average, people might visit 1.9, which is really 1 or 2, right? So that's kind of the 46 plus 25%, making the majority of people are influencing the average. So, but on average, 1 or 2 dealership visits. Same with test drives. I'm doing 1 or 2 test drives, which sort of suggests that dealership visit is really queued up for the test drive, right? It's like if that person's coming in for the test drive, high probability of them actually closing that sale. Real tight corollary here between dealership contact and test drive. What are people looking for, right? What are they looking for from your website, right? A question I get a lot. Well, they're looking for transparency, right? What am I going to pay? What is my payment going to be? Can I manage that payment online? Is there an easy way for me to compare vehicles? Can I get service? Can I talk to someone? Do you have a chat feature, et cetera? Information regarding the production and delivery. If I did a factory order, when am I getting it? Is it going to arrive, et cetera? Make it easy for me to book an appointment. How do I book an appointment? Both for booking that test drive and for service in the future, and then simple, easy handling throughout the whole process. Right? Is there kind of a way for me to track my progress online, the way I buy my pizza? Most buyers, I love this slide. still walk into a dealership. So even in the face of COVID in most of the country, even with lockdowns, 2021, 66% of folks still just walking in, but that's down 7%. And almost the inverse of that was picked up in phone calls and email. So phone call went up 11% to 44%. 5% increase in email, 3% in text SMS, and 2% increase in chat. Decreases here in social media and online form fills. So, and new in the survey, newly emerged as a way that people interact with the dealership, video call, 2%. I really always point out that phone call piece, right? That if people ask me, like, if there's one thing I could be doing at dealership, what should I do? And I usually say, answer the damn phone, because those are as hot a lead as the people walking in the front door. And then people ask me, how do we approach innovation at the dealership? There's always, Google, we like to talk about moonshots, and moonshots are a little unreasonable. You can't do it. You don't have the resources at a dealership. You're also an operational business. So some of the kind of bullshitty ways we talk about scale and growth at Google, they don't make a lot of sense in that model. And so this is a little tidbit that I shared at a dealer meeting I had a little while ago. And then somebody said, why didn't you talk about that all the time? You should probably add that to a lot more of your presentations. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I'll share that with you today. But real quick, there's this author, James Clear. He wrote this book a couple of years ago called Atomic Habits. He talks a lot about this notion of the aggregation of marginal gains. So what is that? Well, he explains it by telling the story of what was called the Sky Team. They're not called the Sky Team anymore. They have a new sponsor, but for the purpose of today, we'll still call them the Sky Team. And so there was this cycling team in England that was one of the worst cycling teams in the history of professional competitive cycling. They were so bad they couldn't get a sponsorship deal for bicycles. Like, no one would give them, no company that manufactures bicycles would give them bicycles and sponsor them. So they got a new coach many years ago. This was a story that's over a decade old now, I believe. And the new coach came in and he said, I know how we're going to win the Tour de France. And that was pretty bold statements considering at that time they had never won. He said, we're not going to do anything particularly radical, but what we're going to do is we're just going to look at everything we're doing and we're going to make it 1% better. We're going to find all of the ways we can improve everything in a small amount, by a small gain. We don't have to aim big. We just need everything to be better by 1%. And so we're going to train a little harder. We're going to eat a little better. We're going to sleep a little better. We're going to become better people, better husbands and spouses. We're going to, optimize our bicycles, but we're going to look at everything, and everything is up for grabs. But we're just going to look for the small marginal gains. And through the aggregation of all of those small changes, that's how we're going to win the Tour de France. And he committed to both his sponsor and to the team. He said, I think we can win if we approach this like this and we do this for a number of years. I believe that in 5 years we can win the Tour de France. And what actually happened is they won the Tour de France in 3 years, and they've won the majority of tours ever since. They've won, I think, 7 out of the last 8 tours. So a really interesting way to think about innovation, and a really interesting way to think about your business and your life. If you want to read the book, I would encourage you to do that. Lots of other nuggets in there from James Clear, but this kind of notion of the aggregation of marginal gains, looking at everything in your business and finding the simple way to improve everything. Really easy way to find improvement, really easy way to make your dealership stand out from anyone else's. So if we were going to look at what's better, what have we made better? Where did we find the marginal gains in the world of Google Ads? Well, they're not all marginal. They're actually some pretty substantial. And so this is a bit of a quick hit collection of some of the products that we recommend for dealers now. Most of it is not search. Most of it, I know Ivan, Madeline went in deep in paid and organic search, so I'm not really hitting search very hard. One would hope you're already doing that, but we'll look at a bunch of things that are not search. Really, as Ivan talked about with automation, machine learning is now at the core of many of the products, almost all of the products we've released into the wild, and you use it every day. If you're using Google products, you're also taking advantage of our machine learning capabilities, whether you're using our virtual assistant, whether you're looking at the time it'll take for you to get from one place to another on Google Maps, if you're online fraud detection, delivery services, music recommendations, what's up next on YouTube, all of these places, as well as the guts and the heart of Google Ads and Google Search, all now powered by machine learning capabilities. And so most of these new products, some of which you might have heard of before, but are now all being released either publicly or come out of beta or now in public beta, all of them take advantage of our machine learning capabilities in a way that allow you get more of the actions that you want, right? More leads, more phone calls, more visits to your own dealership. And so the first thing I will highlight, and we talk about it a lot, and I kind of hit this drum pretty hard over the last couple of years, is really optimization score. I won't go real deep in optimization score, but it is this great barometer that's in Google Ads. It's a percentage number from 1 to 100 that lets you know, where does your account stand? It's not subjective, it's completely objective, and it's tuned to the objectives you set up in your campaign relative to the campaigns you're running, or in your account relative to the campaigns you're running. So it's personal to you, it's wrapped up around your own goals, and it gives you a set of recommendations on how you can improve the overall score. So you get this number, and now you know, like, am I in good standing or not? It then takes into consideration all of these elements to give you that score: the bids, the budgets, the ads, the extension, things that are broken that just need to get fixed, your keywords, your targeting and audience options, and then automation. What's new this year is that we did this exhaustive study across tens of thousands of Google Ads accounts, and what we determined was, we kind of hoped this was true before we released optimization score, but we saw the proof was in the pudding, that if you increased your optimization score by 10 points, so if you went from 70 to 80 or 80 to 90 or 90 to 100, the net result of that was a median increase in conversions of 14%. So that's a median increase in the number of leads or phone calls or whatever actions you were driving in your account, VDP views, whatever it is. If you increase your optimization score, you increase the output of your Google Ads account without changing anything else, without changing your budgets necessarily, just by focusing in on all those areas where you can tighten it up, tighten all the screws, make all those 1% improvements. Second is something we call video action campaigns. So video action campaigns really built on the backbone of TrueView, which is kind of our skippable video format. But the thing that's really different about video action campaigns is we built the call to action right into the video placement. It's on desktop, but it's most visible on mobile. And what it does is it gives you a very simple way to get someone out of your video and over into your web experience. And so whether that's to learn more about a specific nameplate, or fill out a lead form, or request more information, or book a test drive, whatever that call to action is, these call to actions are now built into the video. They kind of show up at the bottom while the video plays. They roll over the video while the video ends. And so they get people straight out of the YouTube platform over to your website, much the same way that search does. And it allows you to bid on this kind of action on a target CPA, again, a kind of cost per action, cost per lead basis, to get them over to do the action that you want them to do. An example of this, or a good case study, it was a great case study because it was kind of a perfect accidental isolated example of how YouTube can drive vehicle sales. The folk at Finch Nissan early on in the pandemic, trying to clear out some Nissan Kicks. They weren't running any other media. They only ran on YouTube. And so it was this perfect kind of test and control scenario where they only ran YouTube. They didn't spend an enormous amount of money. And out of that, they sold out of the clearance number of Nissan clicks that they had to get rid of. Pretty spectacular ROI on that, massive amount of impressions and a massive amount of watch time for a very small amount of budget. One other add-on, Jerry Springer final thought on YouTube, is one of the best, least used features in YouTube now is location extensions. The same way you have location extensions in search, you can add that same location extension on your video. So whether you're using video action campaigns or TrueView or Bumper, you can add this location extension to the actual video campaign, and it will demonstrate where your business is and get people again out of here and over to your location physically. Discovery campaigns, so a little more top of funnel, but something we're seeing very effectively collecting and generating leads for dealers right now. we have an immense amount of scale here. What's super powerful about discovery campaigns is it runs in some unique inventory, some places where ads don't otherwise run. So the Discover feed, which is used both on Android and on iOS devices, in YouTube, so in the YouTube feed, and in Gmail ads. What we saw in a case study out of the US, so a lot of really good case studies that are kind of automotive and dealer focused kind of came out the last year. BF Goodrich was able to generate 30 times more leads at an 88% lower cost per lead using discovery campaigns. So if you were looking to try something out that was new and hadn't used discovery campaigns before, great new way to drive incremental leads. Local campaigns, really a product, again, that exists and runs across all of our media with the sole intention of finding people that will interact with your business or go to your location. So again, using machine learning, we find those people that will either call you or do a driving direction request or actually show up. And then we display that ad to them everywhere we can across YouTube, Maps, Display, Search, the Google Business Profile, and Gmail. Really, in automotive, we're trying to get those people over to do test drive. We're trying to get them to the dealership, but it's also great for those other interactions, phone calls and lead gen and driving directions. Case study from 2021. It was Kosh Ford. They actually ran a local campaign, saw spectacular results, had really been struggling with their Lincoln account, their Lincoln business. And so we carved half of their budget out of search, put it into a local campaign, didn't change their budget overall, and what they saw was a rather spectacular increase in conversions, most of those coming in as phone calls, and a staggering increase in the reduction of cost per site visitor and cost per lead. So a great way to drive incremental phone calls, great way to drive more people into your dealership. Performance Max, pretty new product. It's been in beta for a while, came out of beta just in December. So if you've never heard of it, don't be surprised. Some of you might have heard of it. Some might be testing it now already. Again, like local campaigns, runs across YouTube, Display, Search, Discover, Gmail, and Maps. However, this time, instead of driving people into your store or focusing on those local actions like phone calls and driving directions, you can pick whatever conversion you want. So you can pick your own lead form, you can pick the digital retailing action, the cart build, cart complete, whatever it is. Performance Max drives the maximum amount of performance using automation and machine learning across all of Google platforms. And so it's also a great way if you're not otherwise investing in things like Discovery or YouTube, you can kind of get your feet wet in those platforms by launching a Performance Max campaign and get coverage across all of our owned and operated properties. It's really good, as I mentioned, for kind of any kind of conversion goal. So whether you're looking for leads or website traffic or phone calls or form fills or purchases, Performance Max is probably a good fit for you, which means it's a good fit for everyone. And in this case, what do we see in general with folk who launch Performance Max campaigns? Well, it usually drives 13% additional conversions. So at about the same or lower cost per conversion to what you might be running in search. So performs usually as well as search, if not better in some cases. And then again, following this up, ending my section entirely, this case study, this dealership, Ford dealer in the US, Port Richey, Florida, US, 194% increase in account conversions, 520% increase in conversion rate, and a 61% decrease in the cost per conversion. So those are a snapshot of all of our latest and greatest products, leveraging all of our machine learning capabilities and driving incredible results for dealers and automotive clients in Canada and the US.
Awesome. Wow. Matthew, at Traffic, we have tried the local campaigns and Performance Max campaigns. Performance Max campaigns we're testing out now with a few hand raiser dealerships. And local campaigns is actually really exciting because, like we talked about earlier about the automation, because there's so many Google properties, you're actually following people around more properties,
That's right.
and you're getting more data, right, using local campaigns. And of course, Google My Business, if you want to be on Google My Business, that's a good way to be on Google My Business.
100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matthew, for that. Just a reminder, if you guys have any questions for any of the panelists, use the Q&A section on Zoom. The questions actually come direct to us, and then we'll see if we can answer them at the end, the last 15 minutes. All right. So just keep going down that funnel. Keep going down that funnel. We're now, through Google, through traffic ads, and through the website, and now that an enriched experience comes with Clarice Kovacs of Motoinsight. She's the director of product marketing, and she's going to talk about driving returning customer activity and funnel conversion. Clarice, how come you chose this topic?
I just thought it would be important to share some insights from some of our dealers who are actually really successful with digital retailing. And if I think about digital retailing, we know a lot of dealerships have invested in digital retailing tools in the past year and a half, 2 years. Couple of reasons. One, it was really the only way to interact with customers during lockdown, and two is like they didn't want to miss out. But if I think about digital retailing success, it really is twofold. One is execution, meaning the consumer journey online. So you touched on a little bit, also Madeleine and Matthew brought it up as well. And then two is around process. So the consumer transacting online or completing some of those steps online and transitioning to the in-store and in-person experience. So I'll start with the basics, low-hanging fruit. And the reason I wanted to do that, because even if I go on and audit some of our dealership websites, I feel like that they're really missing out. Like the basics are missed. Some of the things that we can see on there is those pop-ups or confusing call to actions that really do not provide a clear path to consumers based on their intent. And we know that consumers are spending 15, 20 hours researching online. And if we really want to guide them deeper and further down in the funnel, we have to make sure that we're giving them the ability to engage on our site, but making that path very clear and intuitive for them. One of the other items also where I think dealerships are missing out is the educational content. So dealership invests in this new tool, but they're not it's almost like we need to shout out about it. We have to make sure that we have a consistent brand promise and experience, whether it's across our social campaigns or where the customer actually lands on the website. That way the consumer actually knows what they're supposed to be doing and how they actually can progress to additional steps online. Matthew mentioned that 53% would be open to transacting online. There's actually probably a higher percent who would be willing to complete some additional steps online, maybe not fully transact. So to me, it's super important to have that content so the customer can look up on it, maybe videos, landing pages with those additional steps that can be completed. When we talked about call to action buttons, I have seen sometimes dealerships will have pop-ups and additional call to actions to really drive up the volume of the opportunities. What that will do will actually decrease the quality of those opportunities. So if we remove some of that clutter, nice clear path. So if I'm a consumer, I know exactly when I click on that button what to expect in the end of it. I mentioned the educational content. We actually did some analysis with the T-Advantage team to look at how consumers are converting in dealerships who have digital retailing tools, but they actually included educational content and a consistent brand promise across their site and across the call to action buttons as well. They see a much higher conversion. So the conversions of unique users to form submit actually increased by 60%. So to me, this is low hanging fruit. So let's get the basics to ensure that we're actually driving quality prospects into that flow. Now, the next bit here is we talked about it. So the consumer have done their research, they engage with your website. Now they leave, they go back to Google, potentially they're a little bit further or deeper in the funnel. They're looking at payment terms as well. So leverage those integrations into your digital retailing flow. The customer is lower in the funnel. They're looking to calculate the payment terms, understand what their overall commitment is going to be. So get them right into that funnel. So they have the ability to actually get deeper in their complete additional steps if they wanted to. From your perspective, it actually provides you better insight to where the consumers actually are in their journey and where they need to go next. On the top here, we can see we know that inventory shortage has been a huge problem. Dealerships are crying out for inventory. So you can actually leverage, if you have a stacked digital retailing tool, to drive the customer into your trade valuation if they want to understand what their trade is worth first, and decide on their budget after that. to provide them or get them into that stepped experience. So from the trade, you can seamlessly transition them into the buying purchase. So why would you do that? So I actually wanted to share some of those closing ratios that we see. So, average web lead closing ratio is 10%. Some dealerships might be slightly lower, 5%. Some of them might be higher. What we can see with digital retailing prospects, so customer who entered into the digital retailing flow, their closing ratio on average is 21%. And with some of our super users, those numbers go up to 38%, so like double, triple. How do I define a super user? So it's super users really are dealers who gone in to the digital retail and omnichannel flow with the goal to improve or enhance the consumer experience. So they actually leveraging this tool to provide that seamless online to in-store experience, that omnichannel experience that we talked about a lot. And what they've actually done, they don't just rely on consumers to find their own way into the platform or into their digital retailing tool, but they proactively using that with their walk-in traffic. We saw, I think it was like 66%, 70% of consumers will just walk in, but they may not be ready to close or finalize that deal that day. So why not, versus giving them a business card or print out a window sticker, create a shopping cart for the consumer where you have the ability to re-engage with them and interact with them going forward, because you will have better visibility, you'll have notifications when they're interacting with that tool, and also you'll know what steps they need to go to next. Same with phoning clients, we talked about them too. Yeah, we want to pick up the phone. If a consumer's asking about one or even two vehicles, you have the ability to create a shopping cart, invite them into that experience, and again, engage them through that way. Your conversion is going to be more effective, and it ultimately is going to bring efficiency to the process as well. I wanted to bring a good example of a bad example, real scenario. One of my team members recently were looking to buy a car. They knew exactly what they wanted. They've done their research online, found the dealership who they wanted to purchase the vehicle from. So this dealer actually was one of our customers. So my team member configured the payment term and they booked an appointment. Now, the response that came from the dealership, first of all, the dealer actually emailed them saying, thank you for interacting with us. When do you want to come in for an appointment? And she also actually received a phone call from a BDC team asking her to come in for a test drive. So here it is, like you put money and you invest into the tool, you need to make some slight adjustments to the process. And to me, like number one is ensuring that the team is actually aware that we offer this solution and looking at all the information that comes through that lead. So not just a consumer contact, but what the budget is, how they set their term, have they completed additional steps, and where do we need to guide them next? Because here it is right away out the gate, the experience was broken. And the whole point about digital retail and omnichannel experience is to really level up and bring that transacting process that consumers have been able to enjoy in any other retail sector to automotive. Like here's our opportunity to really to shine and level up is how I look at it. So number four, to really help drive those customers to come back to us and engage with us, prompt and relevant follow-up. So if you use the DR tool, really just understand where the consumer is at, where do we need to take them next, and provide a personalized message. You have the ability to reach out to them with new information every time versus just like, when can you come in for a test drive? And you have the ability to guide them deeper in the funnel. So you have one of those tools that you have transactional shortcut links. Consumers will be willing to complete those additional steps. So what that does is a more transparent, trustworthy environment for the consumer. We're bringing convenience to them, but we're becoming more effective and efficient in our flow as well, because we have the ability to complete some of those things that they would have had to do if they come into the dealership when it comes to finalizing the deal. So we really have the ability to provide an enhanced consumer experience, serving them versus selling to them. Oops. So when we looked at some of the data, we could see that dealerships who have leveraged their digital retailing tools outbound, 1 in 5 customers will come back. They're coming and they complete additional activities and they spend twice as long in the platform. So we have to think that every time they spend longer in the tool, they're deeper in the funnel, they're more engaged with us, they're less likely to go elsewhere and interact with somebody else. And then I wanted to break that down specifically to transactional steps completed. So average web lead conversion, 10%. Yours might be higher, 15, 18%. With digital retailing prospects, average, when we're looking at average, 21%. Now, I wanted to break it down. Okay, so the dealerships have leveraged the tool. They actually guided the customer deeper in the funnel. Once they submit their trade, their closing ratio becomes 40%. So 4 out of 10 customers will end up purchasing a vehicle. So you're getting their trade and you're also upselling them too. With credit application, that number goes up to 61%. And with deposit, it was 80%. And we're looking at average numbers. So some dealerships actually do better than this. But I just wanted to highlight that if you really want to succeed with digital retail, and I know it's not going away, it's not a phase, we have to just look at the skill set that we have in our dealership and use the technology to modernize the experience and then just kind of like level it all up. So I hope this was useful. And I understand it's not an overnight process, but DR is not selling cars while you sleep. There are some enhancements and some changes that's required to really make it fruitful and really provide that experience for consumer that we're seeking to provide.
It's great, Clarice. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree. This it's interesting that first party data is becoming so important. So your returning customers are really important to sort of drive them through where you want them to go. And digital retailing, giving them an extra sort of set of features that they can sort of go deep in order to convert. And speaking of first party data, we have Rui Koto here. Our next speaker from Kitchener, Ontario. He's a business development manager at ActiveX. And, we talked about custom audience segments. And of course, Clarice talked about the returning customer. So, with third-party deprecation, it's really important that we hone in on our first-party data, again, to make lookalike audiences. That's still people that have never dealt with you. But also you can hone your actual own customers. And Rui, you chose the best customers are the ones you already have. You want to tell us a little bit of background about that?
Yep. So from my experience within the dealership world and now with ActiveX, I chose to use this as my topic because every dealership has they have this huge pool of customers that they've already sold vehicles to. And yeah, new customers are obviously incredibly important in getting them in, but focusing on your already existing client base can get your numbers up overall and end up making a huge difference. Okay, so the current industry rates for renewal is at 19%. And that number is not very high. There's a lot of room to grow that. And what we're going to do here today is I'm just going to review some best practices with you and how technology can help you get that number up to 20%. Next slide. Organization of your current client base is critical when it comes to renewals. There are tools available that will automatically send you reminders and automatically follow up with your customers based on specific criteria that you as the dealer set up. You have to consistently follow up with this client base. It's key to retaining them, and there is technology in place that can help you do that. Next slide. Video is an interesting one because video is not new. We all know that. But when it comes to the dealership world, it feels like something that is new. And it really is actually kind of new, especially when it comes to communicating with our customers. With today's climate, it's important to make that connection with your current client base. Record a walk around video of the latest model that's in your showroom. Send it to your clients who've purchased a similar vehicle in the past. Invite your customers to a video conference so that you can go over details as to why it might be beneficial for them to start looking at getting into a new vehicle now, for example, because of inventory shortages and so on. Video is your friend, dealers, so embrace it and use it to stay connected with the customers that you already have. Next slide. Okay, so it really is a great time to be a salesperson now. And coming from the dealership world, I used to be a salesperson myself, and now is the best time to be a salesperson because technology has made our lives a lot easier. Selling a vehicle is something, but maintaining that communication with our clients was always something that was a little bit tougher to do. Sending out the yearly happy birthday email, yeah, that only goes so far. But now with these systems in place that help us as salesmen continue that conversation, it's really, really great. And having the ability as a manager to just simply click a button that will take all of your orphan customers from previous sales reps and assign them to a new sales rep who's hungry and eager to get out there and start selling is a huge game changer. So these features such as these will allow you to continue that conversation with your already existing client base. Now, how and when to communicate with a lease renewal customer has changed. Just going back a few years, the trend was still to start communicating with them, 30 days before the renewal. But that's changed because our customers have changed and their buying habits have changed. They aren't waiting until the last minute anymore. Our clients are better educated now. They have more resources, so they start looking into their next options way ahead of time. So these are some of the things that we recommend to stay on top of that and not lose your customer in that journey from when they start looking at what their next potential vehicle will be. Contact them as soon as a major change has been done to their current car model. Monthly follow-ups, stay in touch with them, show them that they weren't just a sale, that they're part of the dealership family. And at a bare minimum, 1 full year, contact them and start talking to them about their next lease. Not a couple of months, not 6 months, 1 year minimum. Next slide. I love this one. Finance renewals. So this is an area that has the most potential by far. And to get your overall renewal numbers up, you have to start treating your finance customers exactly how you treat a lease customer. Get in touch with them, to keep that constant communication with them, because very few of these customers actually complete their full term. 72-month term, 84-month term customers. We've all experienced that customer that's gone into that long term, and they're picking up the phone and they're calling you 2, 3, 4 years down the road, trying to get out of it and into the next vehicle. So stay on these customers, because these customers are potentially a little bit more valuable than a lease customer. Lease customer, they're going to have to get out, but a finance customer, you can talk them into getting out and into a latest vehicle. They want that, because very, very few of them ever finish out the term. So by maintaining a communication with these customers, you can turn that 84-month term customer into a renewal customer 2 or 4 years down the road. Next slide. So by having a customer come back, there are more benefits than just getting that next sale. And one of them is obviously you get that trade-in vehicle. You get that vehicle that you already know, that vehicle that your service department has been, doing the regular maintenance on, and you can go in and get those details and get that history on it. You're also going to get a happy customer, and a happy customer attracts new customers, and word of mouth is the best advertising. Now, how do you invest in word of mouth advertising? It's by investing in tools that will help you and your sales team and your service team maintain contact with your already existing client base. And a loyal customer is fun to deal with, right? They already know your dealership. They know who works there. They know the process. They know how it's going to go. And yeah. That's pretty much it. Thanks for listening and to my presentation, and I hope you found it informative.
Thank you, Rui. That was great. I mean, I think there was some common threads there. Most of us talked about video there. Myself talking about it on the advertising it through YouTube, and on the website, Madeline talked about it, and as YouTube action campaigns, lead campaigns that Matthew mentioned, and of course the video recording and video conferencing. So thank you for that. And of course, first party data too, custom segment marketing, very good, important, and as well as what you had mentioned there in your presentation, Rui. All right. So thank you everybody for coming on board. We do have a few questions. If you want to hang around, we are going to chat for a little bit more. There were some questions that came through.
And all our panelists, if you want to put your videos on, I think it would be a great time to answer some of these questions or comments that come in. Thank you.
So I think one of the first ones is when it comes to local campaigns. So a great question from, I think it's Joel Lalonde. He ran local campaigns for about 90 days, reported 500 additional conversions per month with no real change in sales leads. Okay. Is it possible that the Google My Business, the local campaigns was optimizing for our service department? I think that one's for you, Matthew.
Yeah, certainly. So Joel, that's entirely possible. I think the trick to that, right, with any of these new campaign types that are very focused on specific conversions, like local campaigns or Performance Max, your conversion setup is what's most critical. And what I find is often we don't have separate conversion set up for service and sales. So you can kind of mitigate that. You can't fully eliminate it because people, period, because people will call whatever phone number they want to call. But what you can do is if you set up, and often I think this requires actually a third-party call tracking solution. Unfortunately, the kind of free Google call forwarding number only provides one number. But if you're using something else, and I know Traffic actually uses a call tracking provider that could facilitate this, you set up two different numbers, one for service, one for sales, or you segregate it in the IVR itself, in the messaging in your phone system, and create two separate conversions based on the tagging of the people who call, and then you can actually then choose to optimize to the one that is more for sales. But I think the reality is people, when they see that Google My Business profile, whether it's the paid version from the local campaign or when it's the organic one, it's just the ratio of sales to service on any given day is probably 9 or 10 to 1 anyway. Like that is just the way the math works out. But you can try and mitigate it. So you can try and mitigate it, but it also will hinge heavily on what the messaging of the creative in the campaign is. So if it isn't clearly more of a sales message, then it might lend itself more to service. But as I say, it's hard to disentangle the two. If your objective is most squarely like, I do not want to promote my service business at all, I only want to drive more leads, whether that's phone calls or lead fills, then I might suggest you make the jump from local campaigns to Performance Max, because basically the same experience, same kind of coverage on a broad selection of Google properties, but a tighter conversion opportunity there.
Maybe we'll have like a difference between Performance Max and local, like side by side. Yeah. That would be really good.
The name almost says it, but it's kind of like it's really, if you're driving a local action, if you're driving if you want people to show up at your dealership, if you have those store visit conversions, the elusive store visit conversions in your Google Ads account, then local campaigns are a great way to drive that foot traffic as well as the phone calls. I think that's been very difficult over the last 2 years, just because even dealers that used to see that data are less likely to see that data because of the reduction in walk-in traffic and the reduction in store visits. So Performance Max might be the silver bullet.
Cool. All right, we have one from Madeline from Mark McAvoy about the reviews. Is it all right to be selective with the reviews you show on your website? We display real Google reviews from real people, but of course they exclusively show 5-star reviews. Could we be penalized for that? Madeline Dubé.
It's okay if you only show positive reviews on your website. You won't be penalized for it. As long as it's real content, it comes from real users, and those are real reviews. Actually, you may get penalized if you post false content, because Google is always evaluating websites based on quality, and they also have some criteria. It's EAT criteria, so your website needs to be trustworthy. It needs to show authority. And if Google deems that your website may be spammy, fraudulent, or it may not be real content, you may get penalized and you may see like your website dropping in search results or simply just getting removed from the search engines. But it's okay. You can post just positive content on a website, positive reviews. There's absolutely no issue with that.
And I think the follow-up question was, does a review need to be a live feed or they can be manually added? I see a lot of problems with being manually added, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's right. But actually what you can do, if you have a customer that is especially very happy, about your service, is a great ambassador, we made a great testimonial, you can actually showcase this customer on your website. You could have a section, testimonial section, that you could also film, your happy customers. You post a little video of them expressing why they love doing business with you so much. And that will also create great content on your website. But of course, if you add manual reviews on your website, you should just post a few of them manually, but make sure they are real ones and it adds an added value content on your website.
Great. And we're going to continue just talking for the next few minutes. There are a few questions coming in, but I did want to sort of mention the next slide, Clarice.
Yeah, so if you missed any part of this session or you feel like some of your team members would benefit from joining the full session or even parts of it, we're doing a repeat run next Thursday from 2 o'clock. So it'll be same place, same time next week at 2 o'clock. And we have a French session coming up for French Canada on February 8th at 2 p.m. also.
And please join us Wednesday, March 23rd, 12 p.m. Eastern, where Clarice and I are going to have the next webinar, and we're going to actually have V-Auto join us on that.
Inventory. I always love to have those guys on that. Yeah.
That one's going to be really good. But we can continue with the questions.
For sure. Yeah.
I have one from Elizabeth Mills. Rui, you mentioned communication with our client base. This is a good question, actually. At what point will it seem like we are just spamming them? And isn't there a potential to end up bothering the customer and losing them in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was reading the comments as well. That's an excellent question. When it comes to communicating with your customers on a monthly basis, what I mean by that is salespeople have certain routines that they do. They follow up on, certain amount of times and whatnot. Monthly, they should be looking at going through their client base and reaching out to certain clients that they haven't necessarily reached out to within the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and send them relevant information. This is when the title of product advisor, which is what a lot of sales reps are called now, or consultants, this is when that really, really comes to the forefront. After you've gained that customer and they trusted you enough to purchase a vehicle from you, you got to maintain that with them. Send them relevant information. Keep that communication channel open. You're not going to want to spam them. Absolutely not. Make sure it's relevant. But the point is to stay in contact with them on the long run.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. This one's coming in from Christian Thompson, all the way from Truro, Nova Scotia. Christian, great to have you. Is there a comparative metric for click to call versus digital lead?
I think we would have to look at some T-Advantage data. I don't have it on hand. Yeah, but it's something that we could definitely look at.
Yeah, that is. And I think in our metrics, we actually hold them separate, click to call and calls. They're two different metrics. The basic idea is click to call is a goal that you set up in Google Analytics as a conversion to click to call. And then your calls, usually a provider should be providing you with a call tracking number, which is the actual call that you would have. Yeah. So that would be the difference on that specific one. Matthew Morrow has a question as well, and this one's for you, Clarice. Do you have any additional tips or strategies you can share in regards to implementing process change? Wow, major question. What strikes me from the session is that DR appears to require a different approach from the sales team to reap the full benefits as compared to our existing internet lead handling strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it comes from actually getting buy-in from the team. So we've seen different approaches through successful dealerships. Sometimes they'll have a champion who will run with it first, and they'll see how he's succeeding, the kind of closing ratio that he will get, and the rest of the team is like, oh, what is he doing? How is he doing things differently? That's one approach. And then the other one, so then you're getting the team to buy in based on an example that's actually running in the dealership. The other approach that we have seen, especially with larger dealer groups, when they know, okay, we want to ensure that we provide this modern experience for consumers, we want to enhance the experience. So they actually built out the process within the dealership before any digital retailing widgets or buttons were live on the website. So they had to kind of like run before anything else was enabled. But to me, key is buy-in. Start seeing those results and thin slicing it. You can't change the whole process in 2 weeks. Our successful dealers have taken months to implement it, and it's a slow process. But it's that 1% win, right? Like, let's just get 1% better, that will help you get there. And within our team, we do have performance managers or dealer success managers who can support in some of those best practices to really get there.
Nice callback, Clarice. Nice callback.
I'm listening.
Kyle Forcier has a question. I agree with Matthew. There's lots of opportunity with F&I omni-channel selling. Does Motoinsight have plans to enhance their F&I offerings options?
Yeah, I saw that, Kyle. Yeah, I think, Kyle, we need to pick up our conversation from a while back. And I do agree, because if you think about dealerships who actually embrace this whole process, and this is the way they interact with consumers, it's part of their daily operating rhythm, and they rely on these tools, then we're talking next level. So I think, Kyle, there is definitely plans, and I think we need to pick up that conversation so I can take it back to our product team.
Great. And then Alan Clow, our stores send out newsletters several times a month and have maintained above average open click rates over the last 15 months or so. I guess more of a general comment. As mentioned, if the info is relevant, then it won't bother the customers. Is that how you kind of see it as well, Rui?
Rui is just having some computer issues. He's going to try to jump back on. He just messaged me. His computer crashed.
I think that's so true. Like, it's not spam if it's relevant. If you're always trying to sell somebody, obviously they're just going to drop off your radar. But if you're just doing it to maintain a relationship, I think that's just like here, you reach out to your dealer partners and things and say, hey, listen, I got a webinar for you. It's not spam. It's, hey, here's some educational things I think you could benefit from. I don't think anyone sees it as spam. I think they see it as, hey, we're continuing our relationship of digital marketing, automotive, and things like this. So great call, Alan Clow.
Well, especially when you open with Safety Dance, apparently.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was a hit.
That went good.
We did have the debate about the music. We should start the session.
Last question, I think, and then we can wrap it up.
Sure.
Question from Madeline. This one's from Connor McNiff, straight from BC. Do you see it as best practice to offer additional mobile calls to action on the VDP, such as click to text and click to call buttons?
Yes, it's definitely a best practice, especially because now we see people moving away from forms and to use more the text function, especially on a mobile, because we know now that people, they visit your website mostly from mobile. It's more than 60% of traffic that is now mobile. So you definitely need to have a text button, a click to call button on your website. Make sure you have it for your mobile version. It will greatly enhance the performance of your campaigns if you're doing any paid ads. And also your users, the people are sending less and less formal lines. They want to send text and to get a quick answer. And also something that could help your desktop version also is to add a click to chat button. This also can help enhance the conversion rate of the website.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of our attendees, anyone who stayed with us throughout as well. I hope you took some great information and best practices back to your team. If you do have any questions, I think you got the reminders from myself. Feel free to reach out to me or any of the panelists as well. And I also want to thank our panelists and our guests and our special guest, Matthew, as well, for participating in this session. I do feel that it's great to bring all of you together and share your expertise and your insights so we can really tackle and enhance that consumer journey end to end and have the best year yet, hopefully, in 2022.
Thanks for having me, Clarice.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks, everybody.